I've had a few different questions about how to do the graph in the density lab. In the density lab, you are going to be using interpolation to determine what the percent sodium chloride is in an unknown. The way this works is you will have a graph, and on the x-axis, you're going to graph the percent NaCl. To make sure that you know what each of these lines means, so that you can graph this appropriately. And on the y-axis, you will graph the density. The density and percent NaCl values that you are going to graph are given to you in a table. So these are known values that you are provided. They are measured values, but you should get a graph that looks something like this, where you have a nice linear relationship that you can see. Make sure that you first create your dotted lines, so graph each data point on your graph. Then you will use a best fit line to connect them. Do make sure that when you do this line that you don't do it like I just did. You want to do one that's a straight line, so you may need to use a ruler. Almost everyone does need to use a ruler with this type of thing. So put a straight line. Doing this on a graph thing, you should do it on paper if you can. If you don't have paper, you can use a graphing program or other things like that to draw. I'm using OneNote here. So I now have the graph of my line. I have the percent NaCl, I have my density. This is the graph that you will use to interpret your unknown. So you will be finding the density of the unknown. That's the question 4 in the lab. And I'm going to find that density on my x-axis. So whatever this density is, I'm going to read the numbers off of there so that you'll have this labeled with numbers. Let's say if the density turns out to be right there. So that's my value for the density. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use a dotted line . You want to use a ruler for this. Can't see the ruler that I'm using and it hits this line, and I'm going to draw a line down. So what that tells me is that this y value corresponds to this point on the line, and if I drop the line down, this is the percent NaCl that I have. So at this point, this is why it's so important that you know what each of these lines mean for your NaCl, because you need to be able to interpret what is that number right there. That's the NaCl percent. So that will give you your answer for part C on the density lab.